I had spent so much of my career with not full control of my final destiny. I was tired of it. I was tired of like that, and I wanted full control over something because I wanted my name to be on it, and I wanted to go all in.
All right, what's going on, guys? We are back with another interview today. Appreciate y'all tuning in today. We've got a very special guest. Brett McGrath has joined us all the way from Indy. Our second or third guest who has drove or flown in for a podcast today, or podcast on this show. But this is going to be a very special one. A fellow podcaster, fellow content creator, and card expert. I'm going to go on record and say that here. Brett is definitely knows what he's talking about here. So this is going to be a fun one. So, Brett, first off, thank you for coming all this way.
Thank you for the invite. I was telling you beforehand, I saw that. I've been following the show ever since it launched. Congrats on that. And I've been following the guests, listening to it while I've been walking during my kind of break from the action. And summertime flew in, and I was like, I'm not too far away. I can get in the car and be here. So appreciate you being here. Excited for the conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been fun so far. I'm excited to pick your brain, here and then, offline as well about the podcasting journey. Obviously, I've only done this for a few weeks now. You've been doing this for a lot longer and had a lot more experience and produced multiple shows. So I think this will be fun to lean into, the card piece of it, because you've been doing this a while. You collect unique and cool stuff, and it's the stuff that I know I'm drawn to. But you've also been in this space a lot, and part of this podcast is around content. So excited to, pick your brain and give maybe some of the listeners at home who are curious about content creation, podcast, those kind of things. So why don't we just start there, though? We're here now talking. We're going to have some great conversation, but how did we get here? Who are you, and how did we get right here?
Yeah, I am a collector of collections is kind of what I like to describe myself as. I have always been fascinated by the psychology behind collecting. From the early days growing up, collecting wrestling figures, Ninja Turtles, you name it, starting lineups, cards, all of that. And I've always been a collector, and I don't know why or where that has come from, but it's just always been a part of my DNA. Like, everyone's story, they leave cards, and maybe not everyone, but a lot of people's story, they leave cards and they come back, and there's that whole thing. And for me, the return was I, like anyone, saw videos, maybe a video of yours, and was interested in trying to understand, wow, cards exist again? Let me dive back into it. And I realized quickly, like, this is way different than what I was collecting growing up. And so the passion behind collecting led me into kind of the discovery of what's happening in this space. Now, on the other side, I've been working my entire career for software as a service technology business, worked for big companies, worked for small companies in the startup space, and I had found this medium of podcasting that was a way for me to bridge the gap between our brand and the people who we wanted to become our customers, right? You ask anybody, you ask me, it's like, hey, I got this podcast and it's on this topic. Do you want to join? Everyone's going to say yes to this, especially if they feel like they're an authority in the space. That experience, leading people in through a conversation and then having them understand the company I was working for, led to me to really realize the power of podcasting. Now, when I was discovering cards, I didn't know anything. I still don't. You called me a card expert. I don't know about that, but you
think you know a lot.
I didn't know anything, but I knew I wanted to start a podcast because I was doing it in my other walk of life. And it was the best decision I ever made because it was a fast pass to the knowledge and information from so many other collectors around the globe. And that has really been the fuel to everything that I've done since the beginning.
Very cool. I'll save some of the podcast piece because I want to get into a lot of that. You're probably one of the people that's done, I can't think of anybody that's done more podcast episodes, recording. Like it's a big part of you and your brand. But I want to hit on the card piece. You said you kind of got back into it. When would that have been?
Right before basically the world shut down, like so many other people.
Okay.
I was going through some things in my life personally. My wife and I were having fertility issues. We couldn't have a child. We wanted to have a child. We have 2 now, and might be breaking news to you because I haven't really told many people, but we've got another one on the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we've got a thank you. We've got a full house. That time, and I was not treating myself right. I wasn't treating myself. Wasn't thinking about my mental health. Wasn't really thinking about my physical health. I got into a lot of bad habits, and I knew I needed to change. And when you make the change of like cutting out alcohol, cutting out these bad habits, you feel this need for something else. And that need for me was the curiosity around the cards and the hobby. And that filled up so much space that I was occupying with just stuff that I look back on it now and as a learning experience, but I wasn't really proud of it. But it led me to where I am today.
Very cool. A reason I asked that is you are a big Colts guy, big Indy guy. We'll get into, the icon on your shirt here in a second. But I've done this for a while now, and I was really big at one point on Andrew Luck. And I know that is a guy that you were fascinated by and have some really cool stuff. Obviously worth a fraction of what they were worth at one point. But I was curious, like, how long when did you really get back in? Because, like, the Luck thing had happened probably, it sounds like it's going to be, you probably got in, if I'm going to guess, after Luck retired.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was in it when Luck retired.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. That was a very painful moment. But, like, have you always been, like, an indie guy, always been a Colts guy, like, always, like, since you've been back, always looked for those guys? Or, like, what did, like, when you came back, is that where you started? Or, like, what was, like, the early entry point of, like, this is what I'm going to pick up?
Dude, I did everything everyone else does. All the same mistakes. All the, let's buy the base Prism stuff. Dude, I remember having a Tatum-based PSA 10 rookie, and like you can go back in Card Ladder. I don't know the date, whatever. I'm almost blacked out of my mind, but there was like I think it was like $717. It was the highest sale. I like sold it at that time. I was like, oh my god, and that was like the only success story I had. Got crushed on everything else, and I realized like this isn't fun. And then I came to the realization of like I am an indie guy. I'm a Cold season ticket holder. I just spent way too much money on the entire Pacers playoff run. I experienced that. I'll never forget it. Go to Fever games, but that's like that's what I want to be represented in my collection. Now you mentioned Andrew Luck, which this is the power of cards. I think where I was in the stadium, the preseason game when it was whispers were going around. And I had left because it was a preseason game, left in the fourth quarter. I walked home. At the time, I lived a mile away from the Lucas Oil Stadium. And when I got home, I got the Schefter tweet. And, dude, it hit me like a ton of bricks. People ask me, like, how are you dealing with the Pacers and Halliburton? My comparison is the only time I've been this sad has been when Luck retired. Now, I was never one of those guys that had a pitchfork and said, hey, Luck, get out of town, because Luck meant so much to me. I was like in this new era of my life and new quarterback and so much fun to watch. And Luck was one of us. Like, I'd be walking down Virginia Avenue in Indianapolis and it'd be me and Luck. And I would be like, oh my God, it's Andrew Luck. And I would just be like, and he'd always wave and smile. And this happened a few times now. So for me with collecting him, once I got out of the phase of like buying all the stuff that wasn't for me, I started collecting for myself. And what I found through the Luck collecting is, number one, like he's 1A, 1B to Manning in terms of favorite players of all time. So why wouldn't I collect them? And then also like I could get his stuff for a price because everyone was trying to get out of it. But for me, and it still is, it's been a great way, and this is the power of cards, a great way to cope with his sudden departure and loss, where collecting him fills that void. And it's been my most rewarding part of my collecting is collecting Luck. I love it.
Yeah, I think Luck was a guy for me that I was really big on early on. He was a guy that I was like, obviously don't have the Indy tie that you do. I grew up a Patriots fan, right? So like you got the Manning piece of this. Like I was always rooting for Brady. I hated the Colts. Hatred. I hated the Colts. Now, again, we talked about it offline about like collecting Manning and like his importance to the game. But Andrew Luck was one of those guys that I was like, this dude is the real deal. Like, he didn't win the Heisman, he didn't win Rookie of the Year, but I'm like, this guy's the real deal. Like, I don't think it's gonna be RG3. I think it's Luck. And then he was awesome. Couldn't ever stay healthy. They couldn't protect him. Like some of those real bad draft years are on the line. And I remember Luck was a guy I was like, he's the real dude. He's gonna win MVP. He's gonna be awesome. And then he retired, and I just remember like now I collect some of his like cooler stuff, and I think that's the thing I think about when I see your stuff is like you collect a lot of the guys. We don't collect exactly the same things. I know we talked about this offline, so I'm trying to bring some of the story to context. We don't exactly collect necessarily the same things, but I feel like when I see your collection, it's a lot of the same stuff that I try to shoot for, where it's like the good cards of players that meant something to me at a particular moment in time. You've got the Andrew Luck Prism. Was that second year Black Finite? Third year?
That's the 2018.
Oh, that's later. That's 18.
So here's a public service announcement because you've got a nice audience watching. I have all of the Black Finites of Luck, but the 12, which is the rookie, the 13, and the 19, which is the last one. I've got everything else. So if you're out there, I'm paying strong.
So you collect that kind of stuff. So I have a few like Luck pieces. Am I mistaken? I follow your content pretty closely. Do you have a Luck Ice?
Cracked Ice?
Yeah.
I did. I don't have any more. No, because I've been moving towards the all the Prism stuff.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. So again, we collect a lot of this same type of things for similar reasons. But I do want to ask, as a big indie guy, Luck is big, Manning is big. Those are people of the past. But right now, you're probably in a pretty crazy time. You're also a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah.
Sorry. But you're a Notre Dame guy. NIL is changing the game. I know you have the Riley Leonard Super.
Yes.
The biggest name, I believe, in sports today on your shirt is Caitlin Clark. She's an indie. And the Pacers go to the finals with Tyrese Halliburton, who is now a mega star in Indianapolis. What has it been like to go from like maybe those guys where you probably haven't had anybody too crazy, maybe McAfee, but now you've got some of the biggest names right now, the biggest name to me in sports. Like, what has that been like to maybe start to acquire some of the stuff that you have of those guys?
Being in the same city, and I love my city. I'm born and bred. I never want to leave. I love it. And it's been a reminder of how important basketball is to Indiana and Indianapolis. If you go Google like the biggest capacity high school gyms in the country, like 12 of the top 12 of the top 15 are all in Indiana. Basketball is just different, and people say that and you don't really know, but it's just different in Indiana. So to get that revived through the likes of Tyrese Halliburton and the magical Pacers run, and Caitlin Clark has been it's been special. It's been fun. Everyone wants to talk about it. Caitlin Clark is like, I know everyone, her cards are going nuts. Everyone talks about her. She's everywhere. But like, I'm telling you, everybody, like, I live a mile and a half, 2 miles from the stadium or Gamebridge, the arena, and it's crazy. Like, I pass it every day. There's a game to pick up my daughters from school, and if there's a home game, dude, there are mobs of people outside, all walks of life, just waiting for the doors to open to get in. And it's awesome. And to have like that, to have her shine that sort of light on our city is amazing. Now her cards, right? It's not easy right now. And I told you, I don't even really look right now. I was fortunate. I bought her 2024 Select Gold Concourse, which there's different levels to select. If it's a rookie for me, I'm always going after the Concourse because it's the first level, which signifies the first. I got that card in a PSA 10. I feel very fortunate. I paid a lot when I got it, but I feel very good about me what it's doing. And it's positive, especially after the Prism stuff and whatever. But yeah, it's with her right now. It's like I'm just like, I've owned a few of her cards, but it's just like that one piece. It's like I'm good right now while everything crazy is happening. But yeah, man, it's been fun. Like I mentioned, I've got 2 daughters right now, and it's like to introduce them to basketball through the lens of a female is so cool. And my daughter, I walked in the other day and the Fever were playing, and she's like, is Caitlin Clark on TV? It was like, no, it wasn't the Pacers. It wasn't. And that's what she asked. And I just think that's so cool. And so I feel very fortunate for her to be here and for me to cheer her on with my family.
Yeah, that's got to be awesome for you being in Indianapolis, being an indie guy your whole life, collecting cards, loving basketball and having daughters, and then someone as iconic already, I'm going to say that word, as Caitlin Clark being right down the road. I want to ask you this because I have a son, and I know that, like, we talked about the Disney piece. I collect, Disney. It's so much fun now to, enjoy that with him and to be able to share those kind of cards and just, introduce him to something that means so much to me, to the person that means the most to me. What has it been like? Have you collected with them? Are you anticipating getting them into the hobby? Like, obviously, a kid changes your perspective so much on the world and on life and on this great hobby. But what have your thoughts been around, collecting with your daughters?
So I have I've been very intentional about making sure that, like, there is female representation in my collection, which, Ryan, there wasn't for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
There wasn't. I didn't even think about it. But having kids changes you, and my daughter's curious about, like, what daddy does for work and cards, and I made it a point a couple years ago to say, okay, let me get in, like, even, like, take not Caitlin Clark aside, let me get into WNBA collecting. Let me see what I like. Let me explore that lane, much like I had done with other categories over the years of me being back in the hobby. And what I found has just been it's been a ton of fun, great community. And so for me, I'm buying WNBA cards, pieces of players that I really like and appreciate, and those are in my case. And some stuff you buy, some stuff you sell, but, like, a lot of that stuff I can't bring myself to moving because I'm just like, I want to build this up. So when my daughters understand and realize that can be something we talk about.
Yep, 100%. I think that's such a fair point and something I don't think I've really, like, said out loud, but it's, I would move some of my favorite Ohio State cards, some of my favorite cards in my collection that mean a lot to me, to keep things that I think will mean more to my son and I'll enjoy more, sharing and passing along to him. Again, crazy how much, the perspective of children changes your outlook on, life and collecting. But I know you do a podcast now around the WNBA. Caitlin is obviously 2 miles from you. She has transcended the WNBA card market, the WNBA in general. We're here now. She's in her sophomore season. What do you think the next couple years looks like for the WNBA as a card market in this space?
I don't want to be too hyperbolic, especially I've got a show, the WNBA Card Podcast, where all we talk about is WNBA cards. But in terms of, like, opportunity in a category, to me, there's no better space or more fun space to collect in. And I say it from a few different perspectives. It feels like we're very much getting started. Yep. Right now, all the attention's on Clark, Reese, Brink, those players. But, like, if you want to get into it and you want to understand, first, watch the games. But, like, there are so many legends. Asia Wilson's playing right now. Breanna Stewart's playing right now. Like, those are some of the best players of all time. And you look at what their cards are selling for, they're a fraction of what some of these players who haven't really done anything.
Sure.
Which
sounds like a lot like every other market in sports.
Yeah, it's big surprise. But I think the other component, which I think is just for the audience to understand, is like the selection in the inventory is a fraction of what it is in any other major sports.
Yep.
Obviously, this year Panini's been very mindful of, like, rookie royalty. Let's create a rookie set. They're releasing 3 new products, but for so long it was like a release a year and 3 releases a year. So there's just not a ton of cards. So the really good cards in the Grail cards, for the most part, a lot of them are stashed away in collections of, and this is how it should work, the people who've been there from the beginning, who have always been passionate about it. And those cards I haven't met everyone. I've met a lot of people through the show and the community, but those cards, no one has those cards for sale. Yeah. They're stashed away.
Yeah, again, this supply piece is just such a big, piece of that puzzle, where it's just, they don't make 10 releases a year, right? I mean, I remember having WNBA Donruss on our shelf for Black Friday because, like, you couldn't give it away. Like, nobody wanted it, but, like, you talk about like the legends piece of it, like, Tarasi recently, she's recently retired,
Yeah.
right? AJ Wilson, what, 2 MVPs in a row?
Yeah.
See, I know a little bit about it, but like as I'm learning about it, it's like you look at the supply and like you see the demand now and like what Caitlin has brought to it. And again, like you talk about some of the biggest names that have the biggest demands, the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese rivalry or whatever we're calling it. Obviously has a lot of attention on those two. But it's like to be able to buy some of the, other players right now, the Asia Wilsons, the Stewarts, again, some of the names, Maya Moore, just some of the names you've mentioned. There's just not a ton of options out there to, buy their cards.
I have to mention, because my co-host would destroy me if I don't bring up her name, Nafisa Collier, who is the front runner for MVP right now, who plays for the Lynx, is an incredible player. I just got to make sure I plug her. But again, her cards, it's like relative. It's just they're nothing compared to what is happening with other sports.
Yeah, Brian actually has Card Ladder up, and he was showing Caitlin Clark's biggest sales, highest sales ever, March of this year on Golden. The 101 signed Prism Auto did 366,000. I think he had Brianna Stewart's up earlier, and I think it was 8,500. I think it was a Rittenhouse Auto PSA 10 from last year of Brianna Stewart. That's a lot. That's multiple. The highest individual single card ever was from September. It was $6,500, and Caitlin Clark's highest sale ever is 360,000. So
the here's some perspective. So the Cameron Brink Black Finite recently sold, and that was I think it was like 16.5 or 16 something. That was the highest selling non-Caitlin Clark WNBA card of all time, and she's played 10 games.
PSA 9, 16,000.
Yeah.
What? How many games?
10 games.
10 games.
And so you think about that, it's just like Tarasi, man, Sue Bird, like all these legends of the game have cards, and it's like they're sitting out there,
Well, we're going to come back to that because that is the point I'm going to ask you a question. I think that will uncover some of that later. But you mentioned your co-host on the podcast, the WMA podcast, Caitlin. You have how many shows do you produce now a week?
There's 6 right now.
6 right now. How did you get there? How did you get to 6?
Yeah, so I never thought this would be what I do for a living, and that was never the plan, but it became part of the story, and I just felt like I had to go all in at one point. And so all this was done as a passion project. I was working in my companies. I was doing this on the side because it was a lot of fun. Did it and didn't ask a dime for anybody in the audience, any sponsorship money. I just did it because it was my creative outlet. And I was working at a startup, and this was 2024. Worked there for 3 years, building the company from nothing, and we ran out of runway. And my CEO at the time, like, we were on a Zoom call, and he just looked at me, and he was just like, "Dude, we got to make cuts." And I was like, "Say no more. You're good, man. I really enjoyed this experience." But I was on an island for the first time in my career where I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I got some severance. That was cool. But it's like, what am I going to do? And I got some really good advice and really good encouragement from some key people. And people would say, you need to go all in on this. Like, spend all your energy on this because you're building something special. And sometimes, you're on your own little world and you just need the support system and people to say stuff like that to you. So first move for me was, you know what, like, I love to create content. I'm creating content publicly. Like, what would happen if I created more exclusive content and did more? So I opened up a Patreon group, and it was like overnight, I was like, people are paying me for this stuff. And shout out to all the Stacking Size Patreon members. You've been incredible, and it's been a source of inspiration and helped me to get to that next level. But then it got moved into just a bunch of conversations that I've had with so many people, led to more conversations, and then all of a sudden you're talking to important people at brands within the industry, and they listen to your show. I'm sure this has happened to you, Ryan. You're like, you listen to my show? Oh, yeah, this episode, this and this. And it's like crazy. And so it never happens kind of overnight. All these it all compounds. But then there's a moment in November, and I'll never forget it. I just got done having a conversation with a sponsor. Wasn't a sponsor then, is a sponsor now. And it just hit me. I looked at my wife, and I said, hey, I gotta be done with my old life, and I just want to do this. She's like, if you can make it work, you have my full support. And the next day I talked to my CEO and I was like, hey, I got this thing, I got to go pursue it. And he did it in November. The rest is history, and I haven't looked back. And so that extra time has been, I've been focusing on more show creation, but then it's also, I got to focus on the business too. Like
Sure.
I got to focus on revenue, like
Sure.
not just focusing on content. Like content takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, but like my first 3 months, it was more and more shows, which set up to where we are with multiple shows today. But
Sure.
now I'm in the mindset, it's like, I gotta make sure like money's coming in.
That's what I was going to ask you, because like I think this is good for the for the folks listening. I love to hit on the content piece of this podcast. You know, like went in, talked to my CEO, gonna quit, gonna go all in on this. You have a daughter
Yeah.
at home, right? You have 2 kids at
2.
home. Did you have 2 at the time?
Yes, I did.
So you have 2 at the time. You have
Yes.
2 kids at home. You're quitting a full-time job to become a content creator. What was that like for you the day after you quit that job? Because this is always one of the things I like to talk about around, like, you know, that mindset, because people are always like, what did you do? How did you do it? Like, what advice would you give me if I was thinking about making that transition? Because you went from 1 to 6, career, 15 years, now a full-time content creator, multiple podcasts. Like, what was that moment like early on to get to right here?
I think it was the build up to the moment that was scarier than the actual moment. But once it happened, I had full confidence in my decision and my ability to execute. But there, you second guess yourself on the road to that decision. But it was, you know, I had spent so much of my career with not full control of my final destinies, market changes, decisions made when I'm not in the room, all the stuff. And I was tired of it. I was tired of like that. And I wanted full control over something because I wanted my name to be on it and I wanted to go all in. And when I made the decision, it was like, it wasn't so much like I'm scared, I'm worried. I'm like, I'm going to fight to do whatever I can to bring in money to make sure I can sustain this because I love this. And it's even now, it's like, I'll have this moment where I'll look at Stacking Slabs' account and I'll be like, all right, we're doing well. We're making it through this. This is good. I really enjoy it. Like, we're able to support the family. But then there'll be these moments where I'll be like, all right, time to kick on the gear. It's time to like go put on my business development hat. And I'll just like change lanes and be like, all right, who can I provide value to through this platform that I've built? And that's been fun part of it too, where it's like, okay, how do I take this interest to people actually cutting checks and paying me to do to work with me? And so that's been fun. But it's, you know, as a business owner, it's like, I'm never at ease. Like,
Yeah, sure.
I'm never at ease.
Sure.
It's constantly trying to like process what else could I be doing? Where else is there opportunity? So those are the things I'm thinking about.
I love it. Yeah, I think that's one of the things you bring up around, like, you know, you're never really satisfied, and that's the truest thing in the world is, you know, I think that's one thing I've learned in my time as like a, you know, content creator, business owner is like, I wish I would have, especially early on, like stopped and smelled the roses a little bit
Yes.
more, enjoyed more of like, okay, like we're getting 1% better every day, and over time that really adds up. But I want to ask you, as like someone that is in the game full time in, I'm going to say content creation, you know, podcast creation, what do you think is something that like you see now that you might not have seen a year ago doing it full time, that maybe the hobby, you know, at large might get wrong around like content creators, content creation? Like, what do you think is different than maybe now that you see it versus the way the hobby sees it?
So I think, and maybe this is me being all in and me doing this and wanting the hobby to succeed, but I think there's this perception that if someone is creating content that you don't agree with or you don't like, that it's a bad thing. And I think I have gotten down those lanes before, and I think being a business owner now and doing this full time, like, there are many different flavors of the hobby. There's many different ways to do the hobby. We can talk about all those ways forever.
Yeah.
And there's different people inside each of those lanes creating content. You are not going to agree with everything that they're saying or doing, and that's fine. We don't need to be in this culture where we agree with everything everyone's doing all the time. But I do think that, like, I am more inclined to be a supporter and an advocate for other people creating content now. And I always say on my podcast, I want more people to create content, because just as much as I create content, I consume just as much. I talk to you about listening to this show. It's this podcast inception, listening to this show while I'm like walking and getting a break from the action. But sports card content's always number one for me. Like, I want to listen to everything because it informs me, and even if it's areas that I don't talk about or don't agree with, it just makes me better at what I'm doing. So I would say, like, yeah, I think we all as just a community, like, I don't know, I just think there's areas of improvement where we can be more open-minded to everything that's happening, because all of that stuff impacts the sale price of the cards that you own, likely, that are in your case. It's all these factors that we can't see. So I just think, like, being supportive of everybody in the community, creators, collectors, investors, not something I can sit here proudly and say I've always done it this way. I haven't, but like, it took me to be on my own to realize, like, I need to be more open-minded.
I love it. Yeah, would echo that sentiment for sure. With as many different podcasts as like you have moving right now, some they're I would say they're very different. Some more targeted around, like, football, WNBA, and then some more targeted around, like, I know you have DC on there, more eBay targeted ones. How do you decide what content creators, stories, how do you decide, like, what is worth highlighting on your podcast? You've got an audience, you've built a big time audience, one that you're growing daily. How do you decide, with so many different platforms, like, what to highlight and, like, what is worth your time and, trying to build?
Yeah, I think if you look at what I'm doing right now, there's I would say I'm in the show creation business. I'm a host of mostly everything, and I'm also executive producer of almost everything, which is too much job. Like, I am trying to get out of me being the voice in every episode. Like, we're working towards that. But I have to be interested in the topic or the subject of what the episodes are, number one. And then number two, like, there has to be an audience out there who's interested as well. Like, WNBA Card Podcast is a perfect example. It's like, I'm trying to learn about this stuff. Like, what's out there? Not much, if anything, outside of people just, like, highlighting monster Caitlin Clark sales. So it's like, wait a minute, like, through this journey, I've met so many people. Like, what are they listening to? It's like, they don't really have anything. So it's like representation of that. It's like, that is my fuel, and that's what drives me. And then there's the, other shows, like even DC Sports 87, great partner, Stacking Size, just launched the staging area. But like, I am working with companies and on behalf of companies to say, all right, you're a brand. Let's humanize your brand. What are the topics that we can create a show around that's not only going to highlight you, but it's going to be an enjoyable content for my audience. And that's been a really fun side of it too. So I am trying, I'm not stopping. Like, there's going to be more. It's like flying a plane and changing the engine at the same time is a lot like I think about this. But I know right now, in terms of like my skill set and what I'm able to execute, and I'm about at capacity, but not quite yet. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, running that many pieces of content where you are the main lead on all of them or on most of them is a lot. Like, one podcast is a lot. A couple YouTube videos a week, that's a lot. Like, doing that many has got to be just exhausting. But
I have a content topic for you on this thread. Okay. It's like, I'm sure you've been through this, where it's like, you've got, all these videos that you're pushing out, and do you ever think about, like, people tune into those because you built the brand and people know Card Collector 2 through the videos and know Ryan through the videos. Do you ever think about, like, the impact of you not being front and center on some of that stuff, and like, or do you feel like you need to be front and center on some of that stuff in order for it to continue to kind of build and nurture the audience that you have?
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me that a few years ago, I'd have probably been a little bit more conceited about my answer. I think now, being able to build it with so many people that I care tremendously about, and have been able to, like, build it alongside of them. We talk a lot about it, here. It's like, at the moment, I'm like the face of it, but there's so many people here that, like, make impactful decisions that move this thing forward, that I learn from every day. Like, it's funny, you talk a lot about like the content creation space and listening and absorbing it. Like, honestly, like I think the thing I've enjoyed more recently is like over the last year is learning more from my team. It's like I've learned to delegate a lot more here. So learning from people that are, whether it's a break or the website or content creation for our shop page or just different things. Like, I've enjoyed really consuming that piece of it and like always learning. You do it with the content creation. I'm trying to do it here. Is like always trying to learn. But as we've done it, there's been other people, like we have breakers on our Whatnot channel. Like, we've got people that go to shows with me and will buy, and building up some of those like other people to become more comfortable on there. Because I think originally it was just like, you brought up a point I heard earlier where you're like, yeah, I was searching WNBA. There wasn't a lot on it. I was like, cool, let me learn about it. Let me make some content. That's originally how I got into the content space originally, is like, I remember when I quit my job, I was like, there's not a lot, like, it was like 2016. I was thinking about quitting. My wife and I had just gotten engaged. That was like early 2017. And I remember thinking like, there's not really a lot out there around like going to a card show and buying deals and like showing people what that process looks like. There's not anybody showing you like how to buy and sell, and there's not anybody showing you like there wasn't a lot of content out there, and that's what originally got me into content. And I see that now with like, obviously content's everywhere. It's life. It's so much bigger. But that same mindset you had around the WNBA space is like what originally got me in here. And so when I started out to create content, it was just more of like, hey, this is what's worked for me. Let me just show other people, and hopefully it inspires somebody. Like, that's what I wanted to be, as I wanted to be the person I needed when I was younger, and wanted somebody to show me how I could make money in sports cards and how I could flip and I could go to shows and I could interact and I could negotiate and I could do those things. That is what I intended the content to be. Now it's, okay, well, how can I get other people to assist and be a part of that journey here? It's not something we've done a ton of, for sure. Like, I think I give a lot of kudos to Jeff and Sports Card Investor and those team, their team. Like, they have so many different personalities on different content. So it's something we're like working on, but I would say it's like, it's not intentional that it hasn't happened. It's just, I don't think that's a bridge we've really crossed yet.
Yeah, I just think that's an interesting thread to, as you scale, like
100%,
you're gonna be spread thin. Like, what decisions do you make to keep it rolling?
For sure. I mean, we're there now. Like, it's definitely something like, Brian would tell you, like, it as you grow and try to produce more content, and you're in this same boat now. It's like, you've got to delegate things. You've got to hire more people. There's pieces of it that change. Like, you're in that same boat. I know we talk about like editing and producing and all of those things that go into content creation. It's not just we record this and we just hit go. It's not live. It's edited. It's there's a lot of things that go into this. And as we scale, I realize, like, I have a son. I know we've talked about that. You have kids. Like, I'm not gonna be missing my son's t-ball games and swim practice, and he's in those like swim lessons now. Like, I go to all those. Like, I'm like, that is what's most important to me, and if that means content has to go in the back burner, it does. And I think as we scale and try to grow this business into building what we're trying to build, that will require more people comfortable on camera that will share their piece of their journey with our audience.
The biggest piece of advice I have for anyone out there who is watching this or listening to it, and you're creating content, or you want to be creating more, or you're thinking about creating content, much and pay those people to do tasks that take up much of your time. I lost the first 4 years of Stacking Slabs. I lost money. I wasn't bringing anything in, but I was paying someone to help produce and edit the episodes. And I would never be in the position if I didn't make that upfront investment.
Yep. Yeah, that's one thing I wish I would have done a lot earlier, was get help sooner. For sure. It's definitely a game changer, especially when you're, I feel like I know cards pretty well, but like I didn't know a lot of those other, content or, some of those social things, like social media as well. I would definitely second that advice. I want to transition a little bit earlier. Maybe we'll get back to this. I think it might lead to one of the points you brought up earlier. We'll see. You're in so many different segments of the market. You're you're really in the market, like sports cards as a market as a whole. What is one thing you see now in the market that has you optimistic, and one thing now you see in the market that you think is a little bit more concerning?
In terms of optimism, I think there has been over the last couple of years, and I have seen so many collectors gravitating towards trying to go find key pieces of key sets. Let's take Panini, for instance, finding key Black Finite Prism and not buy them to go resell them, but buy them to hold them because there's some sort of connection. And I interview a lot of people, and that theme of just like going all in and buying these big cards because they believe in the Panini era and they believe in these players and this parallel. It's like it brings like collecting to the forefront, and it's like individuals who have jobs and have kids but want to have fun and spend money on cards and keep the cards and maybe sell down the road or give to their family. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with selling cards. I sell cards, but there's been an uptick in that, which I think is really good. Concerning, I think, I'm not in the card show scene like you are. I just hear secondhand for the most part from, people I'm talking to on the show, but I don't know about I'm just unsure about like the trickle down and the repercussions of like repacking. Like I don't know enough about it, but it seems like with some of the market and some products, stuff is a certain price because that audience is in, and it's like, what if they just left? What would happen then? So I think that trend, while I don't know like a ton about it, like I'm not like overly concerned, but it just seems like that is driving so much of the activity of what's happening at shows that, to me, when it's that much activity, that's where like my antennas go up a little bit.
Yeah, I think the repacking thing, like I think if you really unravel like where it would have started, it would have probably have really created or really gotten legs around, I'm going to guess, COVID days, just from a lack of supply, right? I think if you think of a repacking as a whole, like we run streams on Whatnot like 2 times a week, much smaller shows. But I think if you think about repacking as a whole, it's taking, again, when done correctly.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is not everybody is, it's not always done that way.
That's where my concern comes in, because
Okay.
I approach the hobby from, I try not to like share this outwardly because I think it's overly negative, some thoughts that are in my head, but like I feel like I built my brand on skepticism and like not buying into every new trend and whatever. Like I'm internally skeptical. And so like, if I don't know you, like my personality type is like to be skeptical of it.
Yeah, sure.
And that's where it's like, how many, my thoughts are, okay, I understand this product, but how many people are trying to take advantage of others through that?
Yeah. And see, again, I think the repack thing is here to stay. I'm very optimistic about that. Not optimistic like it's a positive or a negative. Like I don't mean it one way or the other. I just mean it is a way for, I think, as allocation of product from Topps, Panini, Leaf, Upper Deck, the bigger companies, becomes more competitive and less available. Like, are we going to sit here and say that Topps is going to give more people product in the future or less people product in the future? I don't know the answer to that, but if there's not enough people to get all the product, if there's too many people getting product, we have too much product, then we have then we have a surplus, then you have overproduction, then we have a bigger problem. If not enough people are getting it, you increase the price of the product on the secondary market, then most people can't afford it. So I think the repacking thing is here to stay. When done correctly is a huge piece of this. I know Whatnot, again, I can only speak to the Whatnot piece. I know Whatnot has worked on, just from conversations we've had with some of their top team, around like checklists and more transparency around the product.
Yep.
Just to hopefully avoid some of those like, issues that, would bring some skepticism. But I do go back to the piece around, the putting the grail, the acquiring, like learning more about sets and acquiring some of those. I saw you interviewed Josh, one of the founders of Card Ladder. And I know he is really, really big on some of these pieces. I know you have a couple of them as well. It's one of the things, I would say probably over the last 12 to 18 months for me, maybe not at the scale like some of the big pieces that Josh has acquired, Cardboard Chronicles. But I think that's one of the things that I have tried to do is maybe try to put back some of those type of pieces, learn more about like, okay, like I have the Ohtani bat knob. I shared that with you. Anthony Summertime Cards is really on this kind. Like I learned a lot from him because he's so like OCD, so compulsive around like understanding the sets, learning. Like he's he's so smart. I love learning from him. But as I've gotten like I started to uncover more about sets and cards and those things, you learn like that's the first bat knob auto ever of Shohei Ohtani. The first thing matters, like the scarcity piece, like in time, if sports cards become what we all believe they will come, and I would sit here and tell you I believe we're earlier in the sports card market exploding in a 50-year period. I think some of those key pieces of key players from key moments, again, we talk about what luck meant and some of those things. I think those are going to be the pieces we'll look back on and be like, these are awesome, 50 years from now.
Yeah, and with the Panini stuff, like talk about black finites, those sort of things, Nebula, like what's crazy about it is as we're transitioning into this new era where Topps takes over, I have sensed this, and I think the sense is strong, and a big reason for that is because so many people came back into the hobby where the flagship brand was Prism, that there is a nostalgia already forming for the Prism brand. And
isn't that crazy?
I feel it. I feel like I feel it every day, and I see the sales history and stuff selling, and it just so many people came back into the hobby this time, and it's like it's inevitable. It's how people feel about 90s grails now. It's like that's what they couldn't afford when they were growing up, and now you see what those cards sell for, and it's crazy. And I don't want the 90s heads to come over and be like, he's trying to compare Prism to I'm not trying to do, but I'm just saying there's something to be said about when you get back into cards, like what are the cards that you remember. And I think like we were in the Panini era and Prism was the flagship brand, and so I think that stuff matters.
Yeah, I think it's hard, like I don't know if we've done a lot of it here, and I don't know if the market, like, I can't speak for the market as a whole. That would be unfair. I just sit here and I'm like, I don't know if I really sat down and understood that, like, a year from now, Panini Prism football doesn't exist in the way it exists today, right? Like, it doesn't exist. Like, we might not ever get an Arch Manning Black Finite Prism. We might not ever get it. Like, it sounds crazy. Roth Cards just sold Jaden Daniels to the Washington Commanders owner, right? As cards change and continue to get bigger, that's a big sale. That's a big moment at a big show by a big company. There's a lot there. Arch Manning. I mean, the Manning name. You just told me what it means to you.
I was in my hotel room on the way over here, and they were talking about Arch Manning already.
Arch Manning, right? And he's not going to have that Prism. Now, he could have a debut patch auto. Sure. Topps has those, at the time, but you really think about it, and it's like, how many Luck Black Finite Prisms are there?
12 to 19. So, what is that?
8. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, 8. So you have 5?
I have 5. And 15 is the weird Prism quirk. I call 2015 the year of experimentation. They decided no Black Finite this year. We're going to do Black Pulsars. So that was the one year where the Finite is not in the product. I have the Black Pulsar 1 of 1, but it's not a Finite. But in the sake of this conversation, I still included it because it was the premium
one per year. Yeah, 1 per year. But like you think about it, and like this is always the thing that fascinates me with this. Like I have like a guy like Max Crosby, like great defender. I've got to meet him before, so I know we talk a lot about like the stories and the cards and some of those things. But like I have his Prism Black Finite. Like if you think about it, like in time, like 8 1-of-1s of Andrew Luck to somebody from Indianapolis. There's a lot of people in Indianapolis that Andrew Luck meant something to. I was in cards his entire playing career. There's only 8 of them. You own 5 of them. That means there's only 3 on the market, potentially in product, potentially out there. Like, I think when you really think about this entire hobby, this entire market as a segment, that's not that many. And the fact that there's only 3 potentially out there in the world available, like, I think those pieces are going to be in real demand over the course of a 5, 10, 50-year timeline.
Collectability and what makes something matter, it takes a long period of time, and it takes a
Yeah.
lot. There's a long tail. So many people want to make stuff matter right now, and they position it, and they
Yep.
say, oh, this is the
I
first.
mean, it
And
took Prism a while.
exactly.
I remember buying Karl Anthony Towns silvers for like $10. Like they weren't a big deal. Now, I mean, look at Prism.
Totally. And I think, like, I don't know, there's a fun like marriage between buying something you really love and not having someone being like, hey, if I offered you $5,000 for this, what would you do? And you'd be like, no, I love this card too much. But then on the other side, knowing that, like, I believe too, if I just sit on this for a while, like all my assumptions will all become assumptions of other people. And are you going to win every time doing that? No, but you're in the best position when you own a card that you love, that no matter, so,
Yeah.
and just let time pass. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot about, the collect what you like thing is such a big thing for me. It's like, if you collect what you like, you'll never be disappointed if
Yes.
it goes up or down. And again, hopefully if you acquire, that's the way I look at it, is like, I like to buy cool cards of the players I like.
Yep.
And when I buy those, like, I'm hoping it's awesome, and maybe one day I'll be able to pass them down to my son. But if not, I'll just have cool cards from awesome memories in my life. And if the time comes to sell, hopefully I've got some cool stuff to move later in life. But obviously we could continue this conversation forever. I want to ask a few final questions here. More on the podcasting content creation side. I'm gonna ask two. One question, two different answers.
Yeah.
Let's just do it this way. I always end the podcast with like a question around like, knowing what you know now, if you were going to start over, what advice would you give yourself? Can I get one of those for like the podcast content creation because you do so much, but also the card space, knowing what you know now?
I would bring in help earlier. Obviously, I could never have forecasted the fact that this was going to be my full-time job, but I
Yep.
believe that would have been accelerated if I would have taken some money that I might have been putting into cards in my collection and go pay someone to do video. If I would have done that earlier, maybe my path to doing what I'm doing now would be accelerated. And
Yep.
so that would be one. I just think, like, also it's good to have people around you. And I'm fortunate now where I've built this brand. It's still being built, but there are individuals who approach me and be like, I see what you're doing. Like, let me know if there's an opportunity to participate. And I'm like, for me, it's all timing. That's so flattering, and it means so much. And some of those instances, like Football Card Podcast, we just dropped that first episode last week. John Pack Nicholson, he moved from Brooklyn to Indianapolis because of his family. We met for burgers. We just started talking about cards. Next thing you know it, he's doing my reels. Next thing you know it, he's hosting one of my shows. But that's through relationships, and so I would have. I wish I were more open to bringing in help, whether it cost me money or not, earlier.
Yep. What about the card piece of it? If you're getting back in the industry as a whole, starting over now, knowing what and what you've learned, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, this is the hardest one because it's so much of what's coming at new participants in the hobby. What's happening, like Fanatics Fest, all these events, cards everywhere. Like, you're seeing placement of cards. It's phenomenal. Like, and I'm a cheerleader for it. It's like that's good for me. Like, I want more people in here. But so there is this like, I feel like there's such an opportunity, and maybe this is part of the space I'm trying to fill. You collect for yourself. Like, that's what you should get started on, buying what you really love and what you're passionate about, and don't go chasing what someone's saying on a video or what's trending, because that always gets you go sideways. And that's what I did when I jumped back in, like many other people. So I often think, like, what if when I started this journey, what if I just always started collecting Andrew Luck cards? Like, what difference would that make? I would probably save some money, which I then could have invested and paid someone to do videos earlier. But that's not the story. That's not how the story was written. But I think it's always good to reflect on that kind of stuff.
Amazing. Yeah, I love both pieces of advice. Because I would definitely echo both of them. I mean, the help thing is big, and again, building it with people you like is so much more fun. And the collect what you love piece. You'll never be disappointed if that's what you collect. Again, the values can change, but at the end of the day, like, I collect cards because I love to collect cards. It just happens to be the business. But I think that's really, really important in this process.
I see some people sometimes like, or I feel like people like when they hear collect what you love, like be like, oh, that again. And I'm just like, dude, if everybody is saying it, like there's some substance there. Like, you feel that. So yeah, I think that phrase, like, although it might be overused, I think is so accurate.
For sure. Now, if people want to find you, want to listen to the pod, want to find you anywhere, where can people find you?
Yeah, Stacking Slabs pretty much everywhere. I would say, whether it's Spotify or Apple, search Stacking Slabs, hit follow. There's something new coming out almost every day, so it's a good way to, maybe not everything I create is for you, but there's probably something in there that is. So I would say, yeah, subscribe on wherever you listen to podcasts. Stacking Slabs everywhere else. Instagram is my primary channel. That's where I spend the most time. If you're watching this, shoot me a DM. I know sometimes it gets kind of crazy, and I've got kids, and there's so much. I always try as much as I can to like engage, especially like I appreciate all the compliments from listeners. It means a ton. It's like the fuel. So yeah, find me on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll give you some flowers for that for sure. I think you're probably one of the people that reaches out the most and just says, hey, I liked this. Hey, you're always giving, feedback. So I appreciate that. And I will say there's, my guy, Isaac, guy does a lot here for us. He, every time, he'll be checking buying emails or responding to customers. And every time I'm chatting with him, I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, listening to Stacking Slabs, and he's got your podcast on next to him, so I know he listens and he appreciates it. So you're definitely doing some good work, and I appreciate you driving all the way over here and coming on the pod. So I'll be sure to recommend you any chance we get, and I hope all of the listeners will check you out as well.
Appreciate it, Ryan. This was a ton of fun.
Thank you, Brett.